Hi, I'm Chip Jones.
I'm Lisa Moore.
And we're from MTM Realty, and we're going to talk about what happens on the day of closing.
Normally, the day of closing or the night before, the buyers will do a final walkthrough on the property. So the sellers need to make sure it's clean, all of their items have been removed, and any repairs that were agreed upon are done.
So once that is done, and when you get to the closing table, over at the title company usually, though it can be just about anywhere where there's a notary that can do the closing, the first thing you do is you review the closing statement.
Got to make sure the figures are correct, and if you're the buyer, you're going to have your final figure in there on how much money you have to take to closing. If it's over $10,000, the money has to be wired. That is an Indiana law. And if it's less than that, then you can get a cashier's check.
Now, wiring fraud is getting to be a bigger problem in real estate transactions, so be very careful. Make sure you're with your banker and your title company and you know it's being wired to the right places. If you happen to get even a realistic looking email that says wire to someplace different than you were told in the beginning, make sure you check with everybody, make sure that's right, because it's probably not.
Oftentimes, especially recently, emails are getting intercepted with wire instructions. So typically the agent does not email those wiring instructions to you anymore. You'll need to pick up a hard copy, or we can email it to you, but you need to verify over the phone what the routing numbers are and the account numbers, just to make sure nobody has intercepted the email and changed that, because it does happen occasionally.
So once you're at the closing table, the buyers end up doing most of the work. They've got to sign not just the closing docs, but all of the mortgage application, all the mortgage forms.
The seller's going to sign the deed, and the deed is what transfers the title to the property. So they'll do that, and they'll also need to determine how they're going to collect their proceeds. They can get a cashier's, or not a cashier's check, they get a check from the title company, or they can get their money wired for a fee into their account.
Now, things to make sure before you get to your closing that you've done: you need to make sure that you get your utilities switched over on the new house, probably off of your old residence and on to your new residence. That's both NIPSCO, gas, electric, and water if you're in the city.
And insurance, you'll want to make sure that you have insurance in effect on the property that day of closing. If it's a mortgage that you're getting, the lender's gonna require that information anyway ahead of time. But if you're paying cash, just don't forget that, because that's an important another step to protect yourself.
Another thing to remember is get to the post office and do a change of address so that your mail will be forwarded to your new residence.
And if you're going to get possession of the home the day of closing, which is the case most of the time, you will get the keys to the property after the documents are all signed and the seller has their money.
And then, congratulations and enjoy your new home.
Oh, one last thing, Chip.
What?
You forgot.
What?
Don't forget to file your property tax exemptions, which you can't do for 30 days, but because you have to wait for the deed to be recorded. But it's important to get those exemptions filed on your property so that your taxes don't go up. And your title company and your realtor, which will be one of us, I'm sure, we will remind you of when you need to do that. So that's pretty much it. That's what happens the day of closing.